All right. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome to the July meeting. Wow, 7 months. We're already halfway through the year. And so go ahead and do a roll call. Jackie?
Okay, good morning. Lorraine Koss.
Here.
Charles Menudo.
Here.
Vinnie Toronto.
Here.
John Deis.
Here.
John Windsor.
Here.
Terry Casto. Is not here. Bobby Putnam. No. Morley is not. Stephanie. No. Kimberly is not. Todd is not. Kurt Smith.
Here.
Barbara is not. Eric Manis.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum.
Okay.
Barely.
Thank you. It's a summer month. I know people are probably still traveling, which is great. All right, so we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Any public comment? All right, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. The next thing will be a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have one?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Public comment? All right, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. We're flying through the agenda. I love it. All right, the next thing will be progress and fiscal reports, our monthly progress report. Virginia, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So this has been a busy month of grant proposal writing and submitting. We've submitted over 12 requests for over $30 million, as listed there in your summary. We've repaired 3 more leaky sewer laterals and connected 17 more individual homeowners to sewer, upgraded 6 septic tanks to nitrogen-reducing systems, removed 2 more derelict vessels, and this month the University of Central Florida went through sort of the history of oyster monitoring of swirl projects, and they found that recruitment has been increasing, especially over the last 2 years, and that the number of reproductive size oysters has also dramatically increased. And so we're happy to see the success of those projects, especially in the last 2 years, especially in the southern half of Brevard, in open water sites, and 2023 was the best year ever. So hopefully 2024 will beat 2023, but we won't know that for a while. So progress continues. The zoo completed the 21,600 square feet of oyster restoration in the North IRL and a 3,600 square foot project down in the South Beaches at Hog Point. That is the one that is functioning as a wave break for the brand new seagrass planting that was also just completed, an acre and a half funded by DEP grants and funding from the TDC's Lagoon grant program. And so now we're monitoring the success of those plantings and looking forward to learning what are the most effective and cost efficient ways to plant seagrass. We've executed 6 more contracts or contract amendments this month and completed 1 video. Not noted on your thing, we had 1 more clam farmer come forward this month and put out another 500,000 clams. In terms of work underway, we're now at, well, when this was prepared, we were at 81 homeowner connections. I know I've signed off on probably 6 more of those in the last week or so after this was prepared. The Miko sewer line, we finally have the lift station connected to power and are working through the punch list with the contractor and hope to have DEP clearance on that project for people to start connecting very soon. We're working on bid documents for 6 septic to sewer projects, 3 in the Sykes Creek area, M, N, and T, the South Banana, Zone B, and then down in the South Beaches, O and P. So hopefully there are contractors out there who want to do this work and will put in competitive bids. And then we also have 2 stormwater basin projects going out to bid this month. West Arlington, and, the name got Flamingo, thank you. All right, and so then flipping to the other side, the first presentation was an interview I got to do with the Pineda Warriors on their work and work with the community to keep the causeway clean there and the importance of keeping litter out of the lagoon. And then Brandon and Aaliyah have been working at Brevard Zoo at their Science Sunday events that are happening in July and August. If anybody wants to help out with the Science Sunday event, it's every Sunday in July and August. And so we've had a really good flow of traffic through there. There's a lot of interested people, and it's in the lodge, so they can come in for a little air conditioning after walking around and viewing the animals. And so that's been a great way to do outreach. And then tomorrow, the Marine Resources Council is hosting an inspirational hour that is open to the public before their 2-day workshop. Their American Assembly workshop that is not open to the public, but the inspirational hour is down at Florida Tech. And next month, I just wanted to point out, we have the wastewater treatment and septic upgrade, septic mitigation plans that are required by the state. Those are the county's plan is being presented to the county commission on Tuesday, and we will have those presented to you all next month. Then in September, we just sent out that the Water Management District completed their feasibility study looking for additional large stormwater project opportunities. And so they will be presenting that to you in September.
Okay, great. Yes, Lorraine.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, just had it. Okay, so we have got, on the Quick Connects, 400 agreements executed. Septic is 400, septic upgrades, 488. Do we have any sense of how many total we have available for either of those?
In terms of funding?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the plan. It's 1,687 of one and 1,700.
Yeah, it's like 1680, something like that.
1680 for the upgrades?
Yeah, and it's by sub-lagoon, right? Making
Okay.
sure that we're upgrading the water everywhere, but
Okay.
in total, yeah.
So we're only about a third of the way through that.
Right. It took a number of years to kind of get those programs up and running, to figure out legally how to do that, and then not many people had the money to front for those projects, and so we went through a selection process to pre-qualify contractors that we could pay directly. So it's only been the last 2 years that those programs have really picked up speed.
Great.
And right now, especially the Quick Connect program, the city of Palm Bay has been waiving their connection fees for people that qualify for the Save Our Lagoon funding. And so there's been a high demand for those. And we just got another $1.8 million grant from the state, and we've got stacks of people waiting to get into that money. So I believe you'll see those numbers go up very quickly in the next few months.
Okay, great. I do have one other question.
Yes, Lorraine. And then
Sorry, attached to that. So we've pre-qualified, plumbers, do we have enough pre-qualifications so that that can proceed smoothly? Or are we going to end up, as we have in the past, not having the vendors to be able to serve?
I'm looking to staff. I'm not aware of vendor shortage has not been. It's,
Okay.
Other issues, but not.
Only when it's a very tiny job, and then it's not worth their time. Like the
For-
riders and the caps.
Yeah, for leaky laterals, but not for sewer connections or septic upgrades. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, Charles?
Yeah, and Virginia, on the UCF and the oysters, was there any correlation with the success of the oysters in certain water quality parameters like fresh water or nitrogen?
I didn't see that in this report, but there certainly seems to be, near those big tributaries are the most successful, most abundant sites seem to be not at the mouth of the tributary, but near the mouth of the tributaries.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, we could try to look at that more specifically.
Don?
Yeah, also, we're looking for data right now to see if we can see any
Don, move your mic a little bit.
Yeah.
if we're looking right now for data to see if we can see any recruitment correlated with maybe the oyster farming that's being done by individuals behind, off the docks every year, because we think that may be increasing the number of larvae out in the system. But water quality is definitely an influence on that too.
A lot of parameters.
All right. Well, I'm glad we have another clam farmer. I've been pitching it to all my friends, the glorious life of clam farming. So I'm glad that we have another one. And the grant writing is awesome. Great work on that and staff. So thank you.
Yes, we were disappointed after we got our last applications in. The state extended the application period for another 2 weeks. We're like, no, don't let anybody else in the tent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll get points for being in early, but
Right.
but we'll see what happens. So, all right, awesome. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and go to the next thing, which is our monthly revenue graph and financial statements by Molly.
Good morning.
Good morning, Molly.
It's a long walk up here. So for April, we received 4.5 million in collections. So now we're at 396 million for the whole program. Oh, whoops. Oh, okay. So then for the monthly financial statement, for the budget, we have 415 million, and total assigned 352 million. And for expenditures, total assigned, we have almost 65 million, and then for actuals, we have 13 million. Any questions?
Okay. I think you wowed us all. Thank you so much, Molly.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing will be our quarterly outreach report by Brandon.
All right, so the last meeting you had asked that we add in some of the percent changes from quarter to quarter. So as you recall, the county was switching over to their analytics at the end of last year. So this is the first quarter we've had, or the first time we've had 2 quarters to compare full quarters. So the percent change will be compared with the January through March dates that we have. So our website is still going strong, nearly 10,000 people coming in, visiting, a lot of new users as well. And we've seen an increase in the total site users and the total new users, about 36%. And just to give an update, the information that John Windsor had given us with all of the timestamps for the various, or all the breakdowns of all the various presenters, we've timestamped all those and we got those onto the website. So now underneath the speaker presentation tab under videos, you can go in and it's broken down by 9 different categories throughout there. So we tried to make the most sense in how to organize them. If you see anything that you suggest organizing them a different way, let me know. But this is what we came up with, kind of in those major categories like septic and sewer, stormwater, things like that. And so we'll be adding to those after each meeting and putting in all the new presentations. Then Lagoon Loyal website is also, doing pretty well and seeing an increase in site users and new signups by about 30%, as well as the actions people are doing going up 14.1%, and that is probably due to some of the campaigns we'll talk about in just a minute. We launched a few new campaigns on Lagoon Loyal. The Sorrel Facebook page, we actually had a huge increase this time to the Sorrel Facebook page, thanks to one of our posts that I think went a little viral. We had a lot of comments on it. So our reach went up by 531%.
Wow.
And engagement, 170% increase, as well as our clicks going up, over 75% there. And a big increase to our new page likes as well. So the post that had a whole bunch of people commenting and talking, had a reach of 103,000 people, was on our vegetation harvesting. So we had just, we're talking about some of the different project types, and you'll see on there it has 130 comments on just that one post. So, and nearly 1,000 people who had liked or gave some sort of reaction to it. And then our smoke testing, riding the wave of that, was still pretty high too, compared to normally we get about 5,000 for our reach. So it's a good increase there. Lagoon Loyal, you'll see that theirs also, we're on the rise from the last quarter, so seen a nice little increase there. And their top posts were one on the start of the fertilizer ban, and then another one on planting native plants. And our Instagram, not as many followers there, but we did see a drop in engagement, but there's, the Instagram engagements aren't as drastic, so even just a little change can be a larger drop, or it's not as large numbers. And the top post there was one of our algae reports, and then the Melbourne-Tillman Canal project. Or not Melbourne-Tillman, I'm sorry, M1 Canal, Crane Creek project. And Lagoon Loyal Instagram saw a little drop in reach and new followers. And part of that is probably due to the month of April. We were still working on the task order, so the posts were sort of put on hold for April and for both their Facebook and Instagram. And their top posts, one of the ones reminding people about the fertilizer ban, and then just a survey question kind of engagement that they've been putting out a few different facts about the lagoon and asking people to try to answer the question. And then we put out our monthly newsletters, and our open rates have been increasing. So last year we were, probably in the 20 to 30 percentile range, and we've been seeing those go up. So it started at the beginning of this year, we started getting the 50 and 60 percentile. So even though we had a slight decrease this last quarter, it still was higher than last year. And then the HAB newsletters, they continue to be popular too, so we still get people signing up for those. The Lagoon Loyal member newsletters, so those went out, they saw a slight decrease in their reach and open rate, but nothing to be too concerned about. The fertilizer videos are still having a lot of popularity. We get a lot of comments on them on our social media sites, on the Facebook pages. And see over 10,000 views on YouTube and over 1,000 clicks on there. And that's actually increased quite a bit, and so that's probably partially due to more ad revenue going into that. So during these months with the fertilizer ban, we've increased the spend on those to try to get them out to more people. And then the septic videos, those just started airing this year too, so we've started to be able to track those. Now they did have a not as much of a popularity on YouTube, so they don't seem to be as popular as fertilizer videos. Facebook saw a little drop too. That one, though, we can attribute to the month of May. They had scheduled them, but something went wrong and it didn't actually post like it was supposed to. So we didn't have any of them going out in the month of May. So even then, without May, we still had not much of a drop in the reach. So we still reached more, about the same amount of people, but we didn't have too many clicks. Then some of our continuing campaigns, we delivered over 7,000 bookmarks to 18 libraries throughout the county about the fertilizer ban. So whenever someone checks out a book, they were getting one of those. And we had the realtors wanting more of the septic flyers to give to people. So we gave out nearly 1,000 of those to the realtors, title companies, and home inspectors, 12 different ones. And then have 8 septic companies that wanted refills on their magnets, and we gave out 1,000 of those to the septic companies as well. So the new campaign that has helped bring some new people into the Lagoon Loyal program, as we started doing a sort of pledge for prizes. So people would pledge to do these different activities, whether it's skipping fertilizer, blowing their grass clippings back, using a commercial car wash or washing their car on their lawn, picking up their pet waste, or picking from several other actions where it might be planting a native plant or setting their irrigation, testing their sprinklers properly. So they pledged to do those things, those 5 actions, then they were entered into a drawing to get an eco tour. So we've done a kayak tour and a stand-up paddleboard tour, and there'll be another one of those coming out starting August 1st. So it's like a 3-month campaign that we're doing. So we've given away 2 of those, and then we have the 3rd one coming up in August. And besides the tour, we also got some little cooling towels to give out to the winners as well, and we've been using those as giveaways at the tabling events that we do when people sign up for our take the fertilizer ban pledge. We'll give them one of those cooling towels. And we have another campaign that's currently going on trying to get neighborhoods involved. So for the month of July, the neighborhoods that complete the most actions, so people sign up, say what their neighborhood is, and the top 3 neighborhoods with the most actions will then get some sort of garden feature in their neighborhood, in the common areas. So it could be a butterfly garden, it could be a shoreline buffer, either on a stormwater pond or if they're near on the lagoon, or one of the floating vegetative islands or pond gardens, that's what we're calling them here. So not only something to beautify their area, but also help with nutrient uptake. And then we recorded some fertilizer radio PSAs that were launched at the beginning of the fertilizer ban. So we have paid ads on WMMB and Light Rock 99.3. And then with those paid ads, they also give us some free PSA spots. And then WFIT and Cumulus Media agreed to put us into their PSA rotation channels as well. So we'll air those. Logan has those. He's going to play the first one. So we had one that was aimed at people who do their lawns themselves, and then another one aimed at someone who hires a lawn company. So we'll start with the DIY lawn people.
Ah, summer is for fun. It's a time to travel to new places, swing in hammocks, drink from coconuts, or show off your best cannonball. But there's one thing you should skip this summer: fertilizing your lawn. 80% of Florida's rainfall happens in the summer. The heavy rainfall causes fertilizer to wash into the lagoon, increasing algae blooms and harming seagrass and wildlife. So from now till October, focus on fun, not fertilizer. Take the pledge at lagoonloyal.com/pledge.
All right, so that's the first one, and then the second one is aimed at people who hire lawn care companies.
Hiring a lawn care company was the best decision you've ever made, even if they always come at the same time as your Zoom calls. But there's one time of year when it's important to get involved with your lawn care again: summer. 80% of Florida's rainfall happens in the summer. The heavy rainfall causes fertilizer to wash into the lagoon, increasing algae blooms and harming seagrass and wildlife. Be a part of the solution. Check that your lawn care company is skipping fertilizer till October. And in the meantime, take the pledge at lagoonloyal.com/pledge.
So those will be airing throughout the summer ban period. And if anyone wants to sign up for our newsletter, the QR code's there, and then Lagoon Loyal, the QR code's on there too. So. Any questions?
Lorraine?
Just, yeah. There's some great articles in the newsletter. Are they being archived? Sound like,
As far as...
are they archived on the website so you can go back and access those?
We haven't archived them. I'll have to look. I'm not sure how Constant Contact keeps those on there, so that's who we've been using to send it out, and whether they can, those stay active or not. I'll have to look in how long they're active for.
Brandon, do we communicate directly with lawn care companies that this is something that we do, or do we just hope that they kind of learn about it through osmosis?
So all the lawn care companies that are licensed do have to take classes on, and there's a specific one for, the fertilizer. If they have to apply fertilizer, they have to go through this class that talks about the bans and everything else.
Super.
So anyone who applies it, so it's not even just like the owner of the company, anyone who handles it has to go through that class.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Dr. Windsor?
Brandon, when you're tracking the impact of the videos, you use the terms impression and views.
Yeah.
What's the difference in an impression and a view?
So impressions was for Hulu. That's just how many times they've shown it to someone. We can't necessarily tell, if they were paying attention to the video or not. Whereas the views, on YouTube, that's just the term that they use when they show that on there, and they watch it for over a certain length of time.
So it could be that maybe that those numbers could be combined into one, or is that?
Well, they're two different channels. We could, if you want.
Whether they're the same people or different people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just two different platforms, and they just use impression. It's just a different term. It's still, I guess, kind of views. I could use views for the Hulu one too.
Okay, thanks.
But so what you're saying is the impressions are our Hulu viewers?
Yes.
Where views are YouTube?
Yeah.
So if you were looking at the total number of people,
Yeah.
then you would add the numbers?
Correct. Yeah, Hulu, there's no chance for them to click and go anywhere. YouTube, we can see if they click on the links in the ad to then go somewhere else.
Okay, great. Anyone else have any other comments? I had just two. I love the fact that we now have the links for all the individual presentations from these meetings in a searchable, viewable format. Dr. Windsor, thank you for taking the time to list those out. But I know I feel so smarter after these meetings, and so I'm glad to extend that opportunity to everybody in the community So I think that's great. Also, Virginia, I know we switched contractors for the Lagoon Loyal, and so some of these campaigns and whatnot are under new stewardship. So it'll be interesting.
Will be starting in the new fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are the ends of the last.
Yeah, so
Okay, great.
the current marketing group that we're using, their task order goes through the end of the fiscal year, and then we'll be transitioning over. So we're working with both of them right now to transition assets over so that they can have a smooth transition come October.
Okay, awesome. And then I just wanted to commend you or whoever is doing this Facebook comments. I think a couple weeks ago, there were a lot of them, and they were very, very well written, very welcoming, and very educational. So thank you for whoever is making the sauce behind the scenes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next thing. The next section is other reports and special presentations. We have our first one from the ground up, an initial look at groundwater nutrient concentrations, post-septic and wastewater treatment facility upgrades.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning,
It's
Dr.
great to be here.
Good
It's
to see you.
all. My name is Leesa Souto. I am a principal scientist at Applied Ecology and also a senior project manager and the director of operations. So I wear a lot of hats there, which I'm used to. Applied Ecology is headquartered in Melbourne. We're a women minority-owned business. We have offices also in Orlando and Tampa, and we're growing. We provide scientific and high-tech solutions to public sector clients. So we only work with public sector clients. And we're really delighted to be continuing to work with Brevard County on this important research. I was involved in this from its inception many years ago when I was at Florida Institute of Technology as their visiting professor. We got a legislative appropriation to do a pilot study in Turkey Creek. So that's one of the many communities that is still being monitored today, and it's one where there are both a septic and a wastewater treatment facility that are potentially being upgraded and converted. So it's an important pilot project, and then it was expanded with additional legislative funding when I was at Marine Resources Council, and then you guys, Sorrel, funded its continued monitoring. But all those wells were installed with legislative money in partnership with different entities and the county. So the vision for this project has always been here, and it's been duplicated now in two other, a city and a county, because this is visionary research that you all have been doing for going on 8 years now. So thank you for that. I'm here really to introduce Laura. She's the smart one. She's from South Carolina, and she went to USC, even though she's not a football fan. I don't know how you can't be. And then she went on to, where did you go next? Another awesome school, LSU, and got her master's in oceanography and coastal science. And then she got a job working with Harbor Branch in their IRLON network, if you're familiar, the Indian River Lagoon Monitoring Observatory Network, before she joined us about 2 years ago. So she's done everything on this project, from creating the sampling bottles, going out and doing the sampling, doing the data manipulation and data cleaning, the analysis, and then the presentation today. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura. I'm here for the big picture, easy questions, but the tough ones go to the smart one in the back here. So come on up, Laura. And thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Souto.
Thank you, Leesa. It's been, we have a large team actually working on this, so we are very excited to be presenting our results to you today. It's been a long time in the making. So we'll be taking an initial look at the groundwater nutrient concentrations after septic to sewer conversions and wastewater treatment facility upgrades. So as Leesa mentioned, Applied Ecology has been monitoring groundwater since 2017 throughout Brevard County. And the purpose of this was to identify areas of contaminated groundwater and prioritize retrofit strategies. So we have two projects that we're going to get into today. The first one being MICO, which was a septic to sewer conversion, and that's ongoing. And the second is the Titusville Osprey wastewater treatment facility upgrade. So we monitor throughout the county. We started in Turkey Creek as our pilot study first. That started in 2017. We later expanded to other regions. So we monitor in Melbourne and Satellite Beach, Suntree, Vieira area, Merritt Island, Titusville, and MICO. And in these areas, there are different treatment types. So we have septic, we have sewer, we have residents that are on sewer and also received reclaimed irrigation, and then we have natural areas as a control. So here is just a list of the projects. The Titusville at the top, they are undergoing, or they actually underwent a wastewater treatment facility upgrade. They have been completed, so it's not just underway, that has been completed and functioning. So we'll get into that, and then MICO down at the bottom, their septic to sewer is ongoing, but we do have early results from one connection. So before we get into the post-retrofit data, we just kind of want to highlight the pre-retrofit data and what we were seeing beforehand. So what I want to point out first is on the left-hand side, we have total nitrogen, RTN, and the reclaimed, which is in blue, and the septic are the highest groundwater concentrations compared to other regions. And our total phosphorus on the left-hand side, it's pretty notable. The septic concentrations are much higher than the other regions. So now getting more into our data of the septic to sewer connections. First, one of our regions, Merritt Island, this is a region that has a septic and a sewer treatment type in it, and these were already pre-existing, so there was no connections done here, but what I want to highlight on this slide is the proximity of the sewer and the septic sites, and the fact that the sewer is notably lower than our septic. So that's kind of a precursor of what we hope to see when we're connecting everything. And then another region, our Sun Tree, they are undergoing upgrades, or connections rather now. Some of the homes have been connected. We're still waiting on the homes and properties that we monitor to be connected. So we don't have any data to show for this community yet, but we hope in early 2025 that we're gonna start receiving some post-retrofit data. But what we do have is some post-retrofit data for MICO. MICO is different from other regions in that it's representative of commercial septic tanks. So in the orange and green shaded areas are where our sites are located. And so out of the 4 wells that we monitor there, one of the sites has been connected. So we have data for that. So we have about a year, a little over a year of post-connection data. And the black dashed line is the connection date on the figure. And this is total nitrogen that we're looking at. So it's pretty evident that after the connections, there's less month-to-month variability, and the concentrations have decreased in the groundwater. And we've found this to be significantly lower after the connection, with about a 48% reduction in TN. So this is really exciting, because this is one of the first sites that we've been monitoring, and right away we saw connections. We weren't sure if it was going to take a few months, if there was going to be a lag time or residual nutrients in the groundwater, but we saw some interesting results right away. So, and then we wanted to move to our total phosphorus. Same pattern here. After the connection, more consistency in the concentrations and decreased concentrations in total phosphorus. And this was also significantly lower after the connection, with about a 56 reduction in TP, which is huge because in the earlier slide, the septic sites had the highest TP out of all the rest of the regions or treatment types. So that's all we have so far for septic to sewer conversions. We're hoping to get some more data soon, but so far what we have is really exciting. So then we'll move into the wastewater treatment facility upgrades. In our regions, we also evaluate reclaimed effluent concentrations in 4 treatment plants. So we use FDP's Oculus website to look at the DMRs, the discharge monthly reports, and we extract the reclaimed effluent concentrations from those reports. So that allows us to monitor it over time in conjunction with our sites. So the Palm Bay Water Reclamation Facility that services Turkey Creek, they are undergoing upgrades now. They did upgrades, but there's been some issues, so they're still awaiting repairs. But what we're going to talk about today is the Titusville. They completed their upgrades in December 2022, and they're fully functioning. So we have data for that. So we're looking at TN here again in the blue line, which is over a course of time. The red dashed line is their new permit requirements of 6 milligrams per liter. And the black lines are the partial and completed upgrade dates. So similar to what we saw with our septic connections, there's less variability. Within a few months, the concentrations decreased, which means that the upgrades are working and functioning as they're supposed to. So then we wanted to take this a step further and look at how the reclaimed effluent, where it's distributed, is affecting the groundwater. So we looked at our reclaimed groundwater sites. And this is one of our sites, which is almost scary looking, but what I want to highlight here is about 8 months after the upgrades, there were huge decreases in the groundwater total nitrogen at this site. So that's really important. And when we ran stats, this was found to be significantly lower after the wastewater treatment facility upgrade, with about a 46% reduction. And then we found that in another site nearby, there was also a significant reduction in total nitrogen in the groundwater of about 30%. So this is really huge. Whatever they're doing at the wastewater treatment facility, their upgrades are affecting the groundwater concentrations in a positive way. And so then we also looked at total phosphorus. There appears to be some variability during and after the upgrades. And they're only meeting their new permit effluent limit of 1 milligram per liter about half the time. But what I want to point out here is that in the green are the monitoring sites, and they don't, the concentrations are so low, they don't appear to be affected by what's coming out of the treatment plant. So we didn't find any significant differences of total phosphorus in the groundwater after their upgrades. But the main takeaway from the upgrades is that they are influencing the groundwater in a good way. So whatever their upgrades are, they're working. So we saw significant reductions there. And this is important for the wastewater treatment facility upgrades because, again, the TN concentrations were highest in the reclaimed sites, followed by septic, and septic had the highest total phosphorus, which in our septic to sewer conversion, we saw significant decrease in concentrations after the connection in our MICO site. So we hope that we're going to see more connection data and that this is also going to look like what we saw in MICO with decreased concentrations. So really, these two examples really just underscore the critical need for these upgrades in other regions. So that's all I have.
All right. Don, yes.
Yeah, it's interesting how fast it gets flushed out of the system. But I wonder if TP is the phosphorus is being held and it longer, just not being flushed as quickly.
Yeah, and the concentrations are so low, it seems like it gets taken up quickly, and you are probably right, it doesn't get flushed out as quickly, so.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Charles.
Yeah, so how does the levels now after treatment compare to any background levels?
Which kind of treatment?
Well, I mean, anyone at your septic or the septic to sewer.
Oh, compared.
So how does those levels
Compared to the
now
natural sites?
to a background site, which isn't contaminated?
The natural sites are always consistently lower in total nitrogen and total phosphorus.
Do you think these numbers will continue to decrease over time as they get flushed out, or?
For the natural?
No, for where the treatment.
Will they get to natural concentrations? I don't think they'll get as low. I think they'll get low to where our sewer concentrations are because you still have anthropogenic inputs. It's not. Sure, yeah. It's not always going to be, it's not a natural site. So you have development and you have inputs there. So it's likely not ever going to be as low as the natural.
Right, so the sewer is in the pink and the natural is in the green. So even though they're on sewer, you see elevated nitrogen, but like Laura just explained, that could be fertilizer, it could be pet waste, it could be car wash water, it could be, loads of other sources. But it's a lot cleaner than the red septic or the reclaimed in blue, so.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Bobby?
Yeah, the Turkey Creek, Palm Bay, where, because they're getting ready to do their citywide conversions, right? I was just curious where you're testing sites and if you're expanding the testing sites in Palm Bay to see further out.
We don't plan on expanding the testing sites. Our sites are actually in pretty close proximity in a couple-mile radius. So within Turkey Creek, we have 4 different treatment sites. So we do monitor natural, septic, reclaimed, and sewer. So they're all pretty close together, but we don't plan on expanding. But even though they're close together, like we saw in the Merritt Island slide, they are significantly different from each other. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just like, part of what I like was seeing the before and after a little more. And it would be a good opportunity, I think, to be able to show that for future
Okay.
references. 'Cause
Sure.
Palm Bay's a big area,
It is.
not subdivisions for the most part, so, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And in our Turkey Creek area, we do see elevated concentrations compared to other regions. So that is more of a hotspot area that we definitely look at.
All right. Any other comments? I know for me, Virginia, this data is similar to what we saw in Breeze Swept
Right.
when we did that conversion. And I think
Right.
it was almost immediate where we saw the groundwater clean up or at least lessen with our TP and TN.
Right, the difference with Breeze Swept was that project was already underway when Swirl started, and so, we moved as quickly as we could to get some pre-construction data, but the contractor was already there. We didn't know to what extent nutrient levels in the soils were representative of a septic
Natural.
community. And we've seen this in a couple of the projects where when the construction activity is going on and there's dewatering, moving groundwater from here to there, you see some weird stuff in the water or in the nutrient results. So now we have, 5 years of pre-construction data, and so we can very clearly compare pre to post, and we're seeing the results we hope to see.
Yeah, great. Okay, all right. Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Souto, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We'll go on to the next presentation, which I am greatly anticipated. Our very own Don Deis will be presenting on the water quality trends in the Indian River Lagoon.
Well, I hope to educate you a little, Vinny.
Oh, Don,
I'd
you
get to the
always
other
do.
side.
You always do.
Yeah. I'll just use the arrow. I'm going to give a little background data information first to kind of set up a timeline. There you go, thanks. Set up a timeline. And so this really all starts back in 1972 with the Clean Water Act and authorizing EPA to the states and other territories and tribes to develop total maximum daily loads for water bodies. And the guidance for listing impaired water bodies started in 1992. In 1998, the DEP listed the 16 water bodies of the Indian River Lagoon as impaired. So this happened in 1998. And it was verified in 2006 under the impaired water rule. Of course, a TMDL is a water quality restoration goal established in the maximum amount of pollutant that a water body can assimilate without causing exceedances of the water quality standards. In 2009, DEP developed the nutrient and dissolved oxygen TMDLs for the Indian River Lagoon and the Banana River Lagoon. At that time, they divided the IRL into water body assessment polygons. And those polygons got a unique water body identification number, and they were called WIBIDs. The restoration targets were all based on seagrass growth depth. That's something to remember along the way. So we had 3 WIBIDs within the Banana River Lagoon, A, B, and C. So Dragon Point, going from south to north, Dragon Point to Cocoa Causeway, skipping Bonita Causeway. And you can see where they're kind of compartmentalized with the causeways. Cocoa Causeway up to the Barge Canal, and then above the Barge Canal. And these are all nutrient, seagrass-related TMDLs. Indian River Lagoon within Brevard County had 6 WIBIDs. Melbourne, Sebastian Inlet to Melbourne Causeway to Gallie Causeway, Gallie to Cocoa Causeway, again skipping Bonita, and then Cocoa Causeway up to NASA Causeway, NASA to Max Brewer, and Max Brewer up to the Hallover. So 6 of them. They too were on nutrients and seagrasses, but also mixed in there was dissolved oxygen and chlorophyll A. Mosquito Lagoon, I've included it in my analysis here. It didn't have a TMDL. It's under a modified assurance. Oh?
Reasonable assurance plan.
Yeah, reasonable assurance plan. Thanks. So then the basin management plans were developed for each of them, and this is a next step into getting together with the communities and getting input from them, and how can these areas be improved to reduce the amount of loading in the area. And so DEP adopted the Banana River Lagoon and this is where the compartmentalization of the IRL gets a little squirrely with other people, where the North IRL was Turnbill Creek to Melbourne Causeway, and then Melbourne Causeway to Sebastian Inlet is Central A of the Central IRL. It's the northern. There's 4 compartments to the Central IRL BMAP. And these were adopted in 2023 and updated to 2021 with the Spatial Watershed Loading Model, the SWIL model. Love these acronyms all the time. So I just really wanted to set up kind of a timeline for you all for the last 60 years, with the space program coming in the 60s and the development of Brevard County starting back then with no real infrastructure. And that's the problem, is that we had no real infrastructure. It just was development. And then the Clean Water Act was a response to the pollution within the systems nationwide in 1970. And then it took until 1990 to put together the 1990 decade to put together the impaired waters, how to list the impaired waters, and then the listing of the IRL and the BRL. And then the 2000s for the TMDLs to occur, and then the TMDLs developed for the IRL system. But in the mix there was the seagrass die-off and the phytoplankton blooms. And that was on top of already being impaired waters. And I want to make that point clear. It just made a mess of a mess already. So, and so the super bloom continued into 2010s, and the BMAPs were developed, and then SORL started in the 2010 decade, and the BMAPs were also updated in 2021. And then a lot of your legislation that occurred just last year with the septic tank and the wastewater treatment plant programs that are starting now, and also the stormwater rule finally coming out, have occurred in response to all this too. And so it's taken a long time to get to this point, but the system was impaired back in the past, and it's impaired now. I just really want to make that point really clear. So my analysis, I used the impaired water database that was developed by DEP. It's an access database. I started this project back before I was on the COC with Run 61, and then Run 65 came out, and Virginia asked if I could revisit it and update it. And so I was able to add 3 more years and got data directly from St. Johns River Water Management District for 2003. So I've updated it through 2003. And the interface looks like this. You can put in a WIBID, you can select your water quality parameters, and then you can put together reports of all kinds. They can be Word reports or Excel reports, whatever you want. So I'm going to go forward with 3, and it's good that we just heard this. I'm going to go forward with 3 different parameters that I analyzed. Was total nitrogen, and that's nitrogen in the water, that's ammonia, nitrate, and nitrite. And then total phosphorus, and that's all your phosphorus components, with the main one being orthophosphate. So this targets all the bioavailable N and P in them. And then chlorophyll A, which is your phytoplankton biomass, it's an index of that, and it gives you an idea of bloom level, phytoplankton bloom level. Then I'm going to also include nitrogen phosphorus ratio. This is significant because if everybody's watched that, the podcast that I gave you on the nitrogen story, that was more about how you make a good fertilizer. This is how you don't make a good fertilizer. You keep the leaky barrel going, and we've made a good fertilizer in the lagoon. And so when the nitrogen phosphorus ratio is low, it's usually that nitrogen is limited in the system, or that nitrogen phosphorus are together in a lot of it's together, and it's a good fertilizer. When the phosphorus is limited, the NP ratio is high, and that's really kind of what we want. The estimated pre-development NP ratio in the IRL system was about 45. And so the IRL is P limited, it's phosphorus limited, and productivity is controlled by phosphorus. This analysis is the average of the St. Johns River Water Management data stations. And I only use those in the Access database, the impaired water database. Other studies come in, and I just didn't do those. I focused on St. Johns River Water Management. It's the most consistent data. And I did winter, which will appear in black on the graphics. That's November, December, January, and February, and summer, June, July, August, and September, just those 4 months representing that, from 1997 through 2023. So let's start with a WIBID. We'll start, this is really where the epicenter of the phytoplankton bloom occurred in the Indian River Lagoon, the very northernmost WIBID from Maxborough Causeway up to the Haulover. And you can see here nitrogen and phosphorus are the first 2 on the top, and then the nitrogen phosphorus ratio, and chlorophyll A is on the bottom. We're going to look at all the data from 1997 first. And you can see where before 2009, we were actually on a kind of a downward trend in both nitrogen and phosphorus in this system. And then after 2009, it just kind of exploded. And particularly phosphorus is on the upward trend there throughout the system. But you can also see the nitrogen and phosphorus ratio, and this 45 goes right almost through the center of that graphic. And so you can see before 2009, we got nitrogen phosphorus ratios of up to 60. And so, that line across there is really a good reference point. So we were getting pretty good nitrogen phosphorus ratios before 2009, and then it plummeted. And you can see the result of the bloom there in 2010 and 11 and 12, where chlorophyll A exploded and then just has gone up and down after that. So that's the Maxborough Causeway to Haulover over in the IRL. We're going to skip over to above the barge canal over in the Banana River Lagoon. It's kind of a similar story of the nitrogen. Nitrogen is kind of level through the system, a little bit more erratic after 2009. Phosphorus is actually going down before 2009, and then, of course, it explodes after 2009. And then the nitrogen-phosphorus ratio, I had to change the scale here. It goes up to 100, above 100. So nitrogen was, compared to phosphorus, or phosphorus compared to nitrogen was very low, which is a good situation for water quality. And then, of course, you see the chlorophyll A, the phytoplankton blooms exploding after 2010. Well, Virginia and I had some discussions on how to break this data down to make it a little more digestible, I guess, and more understanding. So we arrived on 3 periods. One is 1997 to 2008, which I'll call the pre-upset period. And then the 2009 to 2016 would be the upset period. And 2017 to 2023 is when sorrel started. So let's look at it that way. So across the top, this is above the barge canal. I'm going to go over Banana River Lagoon from top to bottom first. So this is above the barge canal. And you can see pretty level. For nitrogen is across the top. Phosphorus is the next in that time series. So you can see nitrogen is pretty level before 2009. And then 2009, it goes up and down. And then particularly phosphorus gets kind of wild after 2009. It's fairly low. This is what the nitrogen-phosphorus ratio is across the top. And you can see the above 100. And you can put the 45 line is pretty much that red line, which is the trend line for the summer months, is at about 45. And so you can see how it references around that 45 that I referenced. And then in the upset period, you saw a decrease in nitrogen-phosphorus ratio, and then a leveling out during the sorrel period. Chlorophyll A, very low pre-2009, and then exploding, but decreasing during the sorrel period. Coming down about 2011, and then back down to levels that we saw prior to the upset. This is Cocoa Causeway to the Barge Canal. Kind of the same story. This is nitrogen and phosphorus, nitrogen across the top, just a little more muted than the top of the lagoon. This is, I'll tell you it's a bit perplexing why this upset occurred in the area of the northern IRL and the BRL, because there's very little development up in that area. And so, the inputs are low. And it also could be the reason they recover so quickly in those areas too. So kind of the same story with nitrogen and phosphorus. And phosphorus is a little more erratic down in this area pre-upset, but it goes through a little more erratic after that, and then down in the sorrel period. Nitrogen phosphorus ratio, that 45 is you can see times when it's actually above 45 prior to the upset period, and then going down in the upset period, and a slight increase in the sorrel period. But particularly chlorophyll A, you can see the differences between those time periods there. And back down in the sorrel period, starting in about 2010. Cocoa Causeway down to Dragon Point, pretty much the same story, just a little more muted with everything. And phosphorus is not going quite down to the level of pre-upset, but in that same range. And that nitrogen to phosphorus ratios, the nitrogen and phosphorus ratios were never up in the 45 range in this area, but they have decreased over time and are lower even now. And then the chlorophyll A is more muted. The blooms were more muted in this area. But it's back down in 2011 to pre-upset levels. So over to the Indian River Lagoon, we'll start at the north end of this, and Max Brewer Causeway to Haulover. You can see the same kind of story where the nitrogen and the phosphorus were in a downward trend pre-upset, and then they both blew up. They're both in a downward trend in the soral period, you can see. Nitrogen phosphorus ratios were up around 40 and above in this area, and then decreasing and staying low in the soral period. And then you can also see the effects of the algal blooms, and coming back down to pre-levels in about 2020. I'm going to skip on down the next two WIBIDs, the ones from NASA up to Max Brewer, and then COCO up to NASA are very similar, a little more muted than the northernmost one. And I'm going to skip down to COCO Causeway down to Gallie Causeway. This is where the Indian River Protection Plan expands up on the mainland, and you begin to encompass some of the creek systems and the groundwater and the surface water influences from the mainland coming into the Indian River Lagoon system. So this is really a lot different in this area. So you'll see that nitrogen is there really isn't a lot of change in nitrogen over time through these periods, not a lot of change. And phosphorus, too, is very erratic over all three periods. So you can begin to see within the Indian River Lagoon where your problem areas are and what the problems are. So your nitrogen phosphorus ratio never gets, in the winter, in the pre-upset period, a little bit higher, but then all of them are fairly level. Blooms are low too. Throughout, there's low blooms throughout the period, and even in 2023, we got the blooms from, and this is where I think it's very much related to rainfall, and I'm going to try and include rainfall in this analysis by WIBID, if we can find rainfall is so stochastic, and it's here, it's there, it's not over a broad region, and usually, and so, capturing rainfall is something we need to do WIBID by WIBID. And so your nitrogen, this is Melbourne, Gallie Causeway to Melbourne Causeway, 192. And it's essentially the same story, and with a little bit higher phosphorus levels. And this is where phosphorus levels, these are what we've got to get down. And you can see the phosphorus level in 2023 is some of the highest values. So your nitrogen phosphorus ratio is never great. And blooms, and in fact 2023 was one of the larger blooms. This is Melbourne Causeway down to Sebastian Inlet, kind of the same story here, where your nitrogen and phosphorus are erratic, and phosphorus is actually climbing in the soral period. And so your nitrogen phosphorus ratios are going to be very similar as being low. And then your blooms also, your 2023 bloom is there. So that's it. I also have, I have the other WIBIDs, the analysis for those, and also for the mosquito lagoon too, if you're all at all interested into seeing that data.
All right. Stephanie. Thanks, Don.
To me, one of the most interesting things is the fact that that ratio has really not come back up.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's your
I'm
leaky
wondering
barrel.
what.
It's your leaky barrel.
Yeah.
We're plugging that leak.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So part of the reason what I'm speculating is that as both the nitrogen and the phosphorus levels go down, it is going to impact that ratio.
Well, what you've got to look at is the scales of nitrogen and phosphorus. Nitrogen is on the scale of 1 to 2 milligrams per liter. The phosphorus is on the scale of hundreds, hundreds of milligrams. So they're different, totally different scales of amounts. That's why, getting rid of phosphorus, we get very little, we get rid of a little bit of phosphorus because it's not there in quantities as nitrogen.
So
both of them got to go, but it's
the phosphorus, right, right.
And you will get down to those that nitrogen phosphorus ratio if you continue to work on that. But also the just what you guys were just, the uptake of phosphorus and nitrogen is different too,
Mm-hmm.
both in water and in soils. And also, if you listen to Austin Fox's, we want to get that phosphorus back down in the sediment and held in the sediment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it belongs, is held in the sediment.
I just thought that, because the other things you can kind of see the more dramatic results, but that ratio consistently is not coming up.
Yeah. And that ratio is often ignored because, it's sometimes not well explained or well understood.
All right.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Don? Oh, Dr. Windsor?
It's not so much a question as it is a comment on, I like the timeline you showed with the space program. And if you think about all the impacts of that rapid growth of the space program back in the 60s that we're still dealing with now, we haven't addressed all those impacts yet.
That's what it's all about.
And so we're thinking about that very intently, and we're focused in very heavily on that. At the same time, we have a massive increase in the space program going on right now in this county, in the surrounding area, and I'm concerned that we're not as focused on those activities, that development activity, the impacts. Even though we've learned a lot over the last 50 years, we're laying the groundwork right now for the problems people will be dealing with for the next 50 to 100 years. And I think people need to pay attention to what you've done with your timeline and look at that timeline very carefully and see what impacts we're still dealing with right now from 50 years ago.
60 years ago.
60 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I wanted to get across, too. Thank you.
You did a good job. Thank you.
All right. Virginia?
Just, first of all, that was a ton of data and analysis, so I just can't help but lots of thanks to Don for teasing through all of that and making sense out of it. And then, another thing that is striking is that there's a lot of variation out there in the lagoon. It's not one thing going wrong everywhere. It's different things. And so the solutions differ from WIBID to WIBID, and it really takes this kind of, in-depth look to help guide management decisions. So.
Yeah, and also in the areas to the south, the chlorophyll A is not as high, but you've got to remember that other kinds of algae, like chlorpa and drift algae, are taking up those nutrients, and they're out there in great masses in those areas. If you look out from the US 1 as you go along in the airport area, US 1 there, you look out over the lagoon, that's all chlorpa.
Is there a way, to Don's point, Virginia, is there a way to include that in our HAB email? I mean, I know we're using the satellite data to look at the chlorophyll A, but to Don's point, in other parts of the lagoon, there's other type of algae. And so if you're looking strictly at the chloroform A and you're looking at the southern parts of the county, central parts of the lagoon, I love the way that there's 12 different names for every part of the lagoon, but is there a way to start capturing that? Don, do you have?
Yeah, actually, Lauren Hall just put out a paper on chlorpa in the lagoon, and it's a database. So.
Right. So Andrew Kamarowski presented to the committee before using the satellite data, trying to differentiate between seagrass, chlorpa, and water column chlorophyll. And while he could separate out water column from benthic SAV some of the time, being able to tease apart chlorpa from seagrass was really, beyond what we could count on reliably. So what Don's talking about, Lauren Hall's work, that's transect data where they're swimming those transects and putting down their squares and counting, how many squares are full of seagrass, how many squares are full of drift algae, how many squares are full of chlorpa, and that level of work just, can only give you snapshots. They can't give you that weekly report that we're giving you with satellite.
Okay. I didn't know if there was any opportunity. Obviously, siloing is so popular wherever you go, and if you've got two different, researches or data collections going on, if there is any opportunity.
We had hoped that we could do that with the Sentinel data, but we're not successful. Now, as they continue to send up new satellites with different sensors that collect different parts of the hyperspectral spectrum, then we may be able to do that. But right now, plus we have AI tools, developing nonstop. So.
But there's no opportunity to combine Lauren's data along with. I mean, even in a generality. I don't know. It was just a concept, but we can talk about it.
Okay. You can definitely get Lauren's data, and it's in GIS and post it somewhere if you want to do that.
I know in Andrew's last report too, he was saying there were some areas along the shoreline that had sort of a steady chlorophyll A signature, so he was speculating that those could be submerged aquatic vegetation just because it stayed constant. So but it's just speculation until you ground truth those.
Yeah, you put an eye on it, and not an AI. All right, why don't we go ahead and take a 10-minute break here? I know we've got a video coming up, but let's go ahead, take a 10-minute break, and then get inspired by the video and get down to some new business. All right, so let's get back here in 10. these here. All right. All right, thank you, everybody. It's been a data-filled morning, so now we're ready to continue. So the next thing on the agenda is our video for Cocoa Beach McNabb Bioretention Project, an educational piece.
Yeah, so if you recall, we've done a few videos at McNabb Park, and the area nearby. So we had an LID project previously in that area with permeable pavers. And then there was the mangrove boxes and shoreline restoration oysters that were going in at the park there. And so we're going back over to McNabb and one of the streets nearby the park, so across the canal from the park. Unfortunately, the day we went out to film everything, the BAM material was supposed to be delivered that day and it was delayed, so our B-roll was not as robust as we had hoped, but we still did, I think they did a good job putting together this video. So
Those Amazon delivery delays.
Yeah.
Couldn't they overnight our BAM? All right.
This is a stormwater project specifically for water quality to help with the Indian River Lagoon. This project has 2 location sites. The first one is at Watts Ave and Nash Avenue, and then the second one is at North 4th Street and Capri Road.
In this area of Cocoa Beach, the stormwater would run down the street and directly into the Indian River Lagoon. By adding in a bioretention outfall, we're able to slow that water down.
So this project is providing additional treatment to help with the lagoon by removing the total nitrogen and total phosphorus.
So the stormwater collects all different pollutants like grass clippings, fertilizer, leaves, road grime, and all of that adds excess nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus into the lagoon, which then feeds algae blooms.
This is a bioretention outfall project. The stormwater enters the bioretention area. The water is treated through BAM material and Florida natural plants. Once the water is treated, it will enter the outfall structure.
Both of these sites use BAM, which stands for Bioabsorption Activated Media. It's a mixture of different components. It could be wood chips, tire crumble, and sand, clay, all of these different components mixed together, which creates a filter media for beneficial bacteria to grow and treat the water to remove the nitrogen.
At the south site, we are using a mulch mixture, which is 50% mulch and 50% soil. At the north site, we are using a Bolden Gold mixture. In addition to this project in this area of Cocoa Beach, we have the Conveyor Cove project, which has pervious pavers and bioretention areas. Another project is the McNabb Park Living Shoreline.
Treating stormwater is all about slowing down the flow. So you can do this in your own home by installing things like rain barrels, making sure your downspouts are pointed into your lawn instead of to your driveway. And you can even add in your own filter material with native plants and create a rain garden. You can learn more tips and tricks to do around your home to help the lagoon by visiting lagoonloyal.com.
Right. Love it. Anyone have any comments? All right. Yeah, great job.
Yeah, we have a few more videos should be coming your way by next month. So we filmed one with one of our seagrass projects and we'll be going out on Monday to do one of the oyster projects.
Fantastic. Yes, Lorraine, please.
I was just going to ask about the mangroves on the McNabb project. How are they doing? Do they take, and of course there isn't a lot of energy around that particular part
Yeah,
of
I don't get the reports from those.
waterway?
I mean, yeah.
They were in the UCF quarterly reporting and, it's not quarterly, it's more frequent upfront and then.
Your mic, Virginia, sorry.
The UCF has been monitoring that site and the last monitoring report showed both growth and recruitment in the mangroves and also in the Spartina grasses. We are beginning to see erosion of some of the sediment from the boxes as the containers age. So that's what we'll have to watch in the future. But the elevations and the conditions for growth have been super.
Okay.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, Brandon. All right. We'll go ahead and move on to new business. The first item we have in front of us is the cost share rates for our 2025 plan update. Hi, Terry.
Good morning. So at our previous meeting, we came up with the schedule for the 2025 plan update. And so the next item on there was to do the cost share recommendations for the project proposals. So we had gone through and analyzed all the project types, the costs over the years, broken them down in a variety of different ways. And our recommendation is to offer the same cost share rates that we offered in the 2024 plan for the 2025 plan. So that would include $1,500 per pound for package plant connections, $1,200 per pound for septic upgrades, and $114 per pound for vegetation harvesting. And then our stormwater treatment projects are broken down by location, so $357 for Merritt Mainland, $380 for Merritt Island, and $409 for the beaches. And again, we took out the exceptional cases, so the M1 Crane Creek project, and for the vegetation harvesting, we took out the Melbourne Tillman, because those were both much larger projects. So you'll recall in the 2024 plan, we had the 5-year capped inflation included with the project types. So that inflation is captured in this annual cost share rate now, the same way it was last year. So there's no real change here. So if there's any questions about that or discussion.
Stephanie?
No questions. I just move that we accept that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept, so let's go ahead and have any discussion, any further discussion? Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take public comment. Is there any public comment on the motion on the floor to accept the cost share? All right, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously.
All right, so the next steps with this, we'll get the portal updated and hopefully have that open by the end of the month, beginning of next month, for project applications to be accepted.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Terry. All right, the next item is the Gallie Muck Removal Project Scope and Funding. Virginia.
Okay, so as you know, we went out to bid for our Gallie Causeway project, and the bids came back high right before the county commission took their summer break, and so we took that item to the board and asked them to reject the sole bid and give us the summer to work to sort of, you know, recalibrate, refocus that project. So what I wanted to highlight was that what was bid was a much bigger project than what was funded in the plan. So we permitted a bigger area than what was the focused area of the plan, and we tried to structure the bid with a base bid and options so that we could use whatever funding was available, whatever grants we had managed to achieve, to be able to remove as much muck as possible from the lagoon. But the way that the bid, the sole bid that came in was structured, there was no way to award pieces, parts, and meet the load reduction targets from the plan for the budget that we had. So we've now coordinated with Florida Tech, gone back out into the field, collected a denser pattern of muck flux data so that we could better target the highest loading sites, and redrawn our project extent so that we're still meeting the flux reduction targets in the plan with a slightly lower volume, so that we believe that we can get bids in for the budget that is available. We were anticipating that we would have another $1.5 million in addition to what's in the plan, plus the 2 grants that we've had from previous legislative appropriations. Unfortunately, that $1.5 million was vetoed, so the work that we had done to scale the project to the funds available, we were suddenly $1.5 million short. So what we're proposing to you here today is that we take the just over $1.5 million that is available for interstitial treatment, use that for the dredging, go back out to bid for just the dredging. We also questioned 11 vendors that came to the pre-qual meeting that seemed very interested in the project, but then only one of them actually submitted a bid. So we wanted to find out, why they did not submit bids. And one of their concerns was the interstitial treatment and the performance pay structure for that. They were just worried that they weren't going to be able to meet the targets and wouldn't get paid because of that. So that and a number of things scared them off. So we believe that if we exclude interstitial treatment from this project, we will get a bigger field of contractors bidding and a more competitive price and be able to move the project forward. We have applied for additional state funding. We hope that that will come in while we're still, it'll take us a few years to get this project done. And so we could then use that additional funding to expand the project, remove more muck, try to negotiate interstitial treatment if the contractor is willing to go there. But we would like to, take the dollars that we have and get them to work and be improving water quality as much and as quickly as possible. So that's, we would still achieve the same flux reduction benefits as what was in the plan, but we would rearrange the dollars. And so we're looking for your recommendation for that.
Okay, Stephanie, and then Don, and then Charles.
The data that Don proposed, when we looked at that data, this is the area that we're seeing the least recovery in. And so it really is super important that we get rid of the muck in this particular region. And so I think we do whatever we can in order to facilitate that and to move it forward, because that's exactly what your data was showing, is that region and on down into Melbourne, that's where we've got the problem.
Don?
But there still will be interstitial water treatment, right?
Well, if we are not successful getting any other funding, and if the bids come in, there's not a lot of money left on the table, then no, we might not do interstitial treatment, right? We would need additional funding to be able to do interstitial treatment.
Yeah, that makes it kind of weird. Because the water will return.
Right. So, when we were working in enclosed sites, like the Grand Canal, like Sykes Creek, right, we've been concerned about the discharge. Here at BV 52, when we did the Turkey Creek dredging, we did not initially have any interstitial treatment, only the FEMA funded portion of the work. We added phosphorus removal. When you look at the volume and rate of nutrients that we would anticipate being discharged from the dewatering, it is of a similar state to what is coming down Turkey Creek already, right? So it's not a high concentration to a portion of the lagoon that is enclosed and not used to assimilating that sort of volume of load.
So your disposal site is larger and you can hold it longer, is that?
The disposal, well, it's not a disposal, it's a dewatering site.
Yeah.
It is larger, so it does hold the water for a bit longer, but mostly it's that you're discharging to the open water of the Indian River Lagoon, not to an enclosed canal.
Oh.
right? So Florida Tech did measurements back when we were doing the Turkey Creek dredging that used the same BV52 site. And within 100 meters of the discharge pipe, they could see no signal, no elevated nutrient plume.
That's bad, that's good.
Charles?
So ideally, if you got the extra funding, you would need that while you are doing the initial demucking or soon thereafter, so that you have it, and then you can treat that interstitial water?
Right, so I think there's kind of a couple questions there. We would want to get started with dredging as soon as the contractor could get out there and get started with dredging. We don't know what the timing of additional revenues would be. We could potentially structure the bid so that we had the contractor working in the shallower faced areas, where the muck is not as thick, where they are in the course of dredging thinner muck, they're also slurping a lot of water. And so the interstitial is already,
Concentration isn't as high?
Yes, there's the opposite way of saying that. Yeah. Diluted. It's already diluted by lagoon water. And so hopefully by the time they got to the deep dredge areas where the interstitial water would be higher concentrations, we would have grant funding. We would have had the opportunity to negotiate interstitial treatment.
So it'd be like an option to the contract that if this happens, then we're going to ask you to do this work. And
so, I mean, we need to work with our procurement folks on how we would structure it. Because of the comments that we got back from the bidders, I'm concerned that if we put it, even if we put it in there as an option that, you know, might not be awarded, that they don't even have to bid on, it may still discourage the competition. And I think at this point, what we really want to see is competition, right? We want to see them sharpen their pencils and give us their best price for getting the muck out of the lagoon. And, you know, at this site, if we weren't able to do interstitial treatment, I'm not particularly worried about it because it hasn't been a problem at this site in the past. But we really need to know what does dredging cost and how much does interstitial treatment impact that cost when we add that to our requirements.
Okay, anybody else have a discussion item? Just a few comments for me. First off, I think this is one of the brilliance of the plan is taking action and then also looking for additional actions that using additional funds while we're acting. You know, an interstitial treatment was not part of the original plan. This was something we added on. So trying to get multiple bids on a dredge, this, after 8 years of this going, I think it's great to see what that dredging cost is while we go after those additional interstitial funds. The one thing that I would ask with our motion is, and I understand when you have a multi-year project, and I know one of the things the contractors asked for was they wanted a price escalation clause for fuel and truck hauling. I understand as a business owner, if you're projecting out 2 or 3 years based on gas and truck hauling, that could pigeonhole you into position. What I would like to see, and if procurement can do it or if it's been done, is a price escalation or de-escalation clause. So if we based it on a fuel price now, or however that escalation clause is going to be based on fuel going up, if the fuel goes down, that we're able to recapture those funds as well. And maybe use them for another project. So that would be my only question to procurement, and that I would ask that we put that in our motion.
I think that's a good idea, because if you're going one way, you got to consider the other way.
Agreed.
And depending on how the election goes, it could definitely go down. Just saying.
All right. So that's the final of my discussion. Is there any other discussion on the board, and then we'll take public comment? Todd, please.
The only thing to add is I definitely support adding as much flexibility as you can on down the road for staff to negotiate things on that, because I know we're seeing the same thing, is that there's a lot of work out there, and with all of the volatility, people are very risk averse. So I think what you're seeing is pretty typical across the market. So to the extent, so I guess from the same thing, I would encourage us to encourage staff to include as much flexibility for them in that bid process after the, because most of the dollars are going to be in what you're going to lock down anyway. So,
Dr. Windsor, did you?
Would you like a motion?
Well, I want to take, well, yeah, we'll go do a motion and then we'll take public comment. Yes, sir.
To recommend downscaling the project with the flexibility and the price escalation clause that Vinnie described.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. We've already had discussion. Is there any additional panel discussion or oversight committee? All right, we'll go ahead and take public comment. Is there any public comment on the motion on the floor? Yeah. Oh, Virginia, hold on 1 second, sir.
Sorry,
please.
can I clarify, does the motion include using the interstitial budget for the dredging or not?
Yes.
Stephanie, the second, is that how you understood it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, yes, sir, please.
Yeah, Hamilton Boone, Councilman, Indian Harbor Beach. And I want to congratulate Virginia on all the work that she's done. We met months back so I could gather an understanding of exactly what this involves. And my question is, because I live on a small canal right down from the castle. And I have a 14-foot aluminum boat, 15-horse Johnson on it, and I cannot get it out of the lift. And I've got pictures I can show you. There's two pontoon boats on that canal that can no longer go out. So my question is, and that's just that one canal in Indian Harbor Beach. So my question is, how does this impact Indian Harbor and Satellite Beach getting their canals dredged? Because we originally were ready to go, and then this project came in front of it, and Virginia explained well why, and I understand. But I'm just trying to get a better idea, so when I report back to the folks in Indian Harbor, what we can expect. Is this going to increase our time again, or whatever? Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you. Thank you for your service, too. Virginia?
So definitely the inability to award the bid a couple months ago and having to go back out to rebid, right, that's a delay. And their projects are waiting for us to finish at BV 52 so that their projects can use that same dredge material management area. But stripping interstitial out of the contract may speed things up. One of the contractors that we talked about they might be able to use a bigger dredge that would work faster, which they couldn't accommodate interstitial treatment at that pace. But if that's not throttling the project back, then we might see bigger equipment working at a faster pace.
Okay. All right, thank you, Councilman. Any further public comment? All right, looks like we'll go ahead and take a vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. All right, so now we'll go to general public comments. And the first one we had was Cole Manis.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Cole Manis, Assistant Principal of Operations at Cocoa Beach Junior Senior High School. I'm also in charge of the Career and Technical Education program at Cocoa Beach Junior High School. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you. I've got a list of names I wanted to recognize because we give certification tests. And our certification test happened around April, which left us all of the rest of April and May with our kiddos who didn't have a final exam, and we wanted to make sure we got as many people in the career world in front of them as possible. And so Junior Achievement helped us out with that, and Conroy Bader and Bianca Booz, and the following people came and helped us out. And if you've never had the opportunity to speak in front of teenagers in a high school setting, it is daunting, it is intimidating, and it is challenging to hold their attention. So Terry Breeden, thank you very much for coming in. Vinnie Toronto, Kimberly Newton, Jesse Wales, Terry Casto, Don Deis, Jody Castle and Emma Thompson from Brevard Zoo, Terry Williamson and Jennifer Thompson, and then our CTE folks, Rachel Rutledge and Kathy Bramlett, who have been supporting us a ton. A couple more updates. We are working with FIT to develop our curriculum right now. Dr. Ralph Tieringen and Austin Fox, my guy I met here at the last one, he's helped us out a lot. He came in and spoke as well, and he's helping us get all the correct equipment so we have everything ready for our lab. And our lab is going to be ready in early August. So early August, we'll have that up and running. If anybody would like a tour, I would be happy. Anytime, I'm working Monday through Friday. If anybody wants to come in and see it, it's ready to start getting looked at right now. And I can show you all the cool stuff we got going on. We did double the size of the dock with some grants as well to prepare it for our floating classroom. So we have a 13 passenger, 24-foot pontoon boat that we're going to be able to take the kids out on field trips to the Thousand Islands, and a class set of kayaks, so we can swap back and forth, all new water quality testing equipment, and a lot of that is because of you all's support. So thank you very much for that. And also I'd like to introduce our new aqua science teacher, Ms. Julie Schmidt. She was a worker at SeaWorld, she has worked at Brevard Zoo, and she has been a teacher, so she is like Neo. She's the perfect candidate for this program. She's not here. Okay. She's been doing all kinds of seagrass stuff on her own, making contacts on her own. She's been unbelievable. It's helped me out a ton. So I will introduce her to you the next time that you guys come in as well. So everything is going great. Just wanted to give you an update on all that. So thank you very much for being brave citizens to come and hang out with our kiddos. Thank you.
Thank you, Cole. Can I ask, Cole and Virginia, can we get a presentation from some of your class members next year? If you've got some water quality tests and stuff, I think it would be great for them to come to present, to kind of see their work and how important it really is.
Yes.
And I'd love to hear from them on the water quality right there at that beautiful new dock.
Yes, absolutely. We got plenty of kids. I got to navigate all the permission slips.
Yeah, bring them in here. I taught in front of them, so I want everyone else to see them. Bring them in here. Bring them in here.
I'll definitely have some kiddos for you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Cole, for that opportunity, and the community for jumping in. All right, next we're going to hear I once caught a fish this big story from our very own Jim Glass. Come tell us about how big that fish was you caught.
I'm Jim Glass with the Florida Fly Fishing Association, and I'm the conservation director for our club. I thought I'd tell you about a couple fishing trips that we had. We're back to 75 members now and doing monthly fishing trips. First one we did was up in the north end of the lagoon in the north of the Titusville area. The guys, I didn't get to go because I'm still fighting a infection in my hand here. But they came back and they were excited. The seagrass looks great. They caught snook, they caught redfish, and they had a great time. Just last week, they did a fishing trip down in the south end of the lagoon, Sebastian River area. They saw a lot of tarpon. They didn't catch any. I said they were using the wrong fly. But they caught snook and jacks, ladyfish, had a great time. So I just wanted to give you that little report. But I had a couple other things I wanted to tell you about. The county engineering, the utility department has come up with a plan, I guess. Virginia, did you say it's coming up this week?
Yes.
This week, to connect 53,000, something like that. Anyway, a bunch of septic tanks because of the state has mandated it. I've always been an advocate that the central part of the lagoon, the main thing we need to do is to hook those septic tanks up and get them so the water quality will improve. And that's great news. 3 things I wanted to ask you to consider. Muck, I don't know, Muck is about, what, a third of the plan that we're doing now, muck removal, something like that. I just heard the report that you did about the improvements of groundwater from wastewater treatment plant improvals and septic tank improvals. I would like you all to do another study about muck. What's the water quality improvements after you remove muck in the lagoon? I don't know whether you've done a study like that, but I'd like to hear something about that. The second thing is the status of flushing the lagoon. Several of our members have asked me, what about the flushing of the lagoon? Florida Tech, I know, is doing a study, and John, I don't know, what's the status of that? Have they gotten any data yet from the study they're doing on flushing the lagoon?
Yeah, it's all good, Dr. Winter.
I'm out of that total.
Oh, yeah.
And I know, as far as I know, FIT has been out of the flushing study for at least 2 years, maybe? I think UCF has taken over that.
Yeah, so-
UCF is doing it, okay.
The legislature had proposed funding for UCF to construct a pilot project
that's
based
right, yeah.
on the modeling and design and permitting that Florida Tech researchers had done. That funding, I believe, was vetoed by the governor last month.
Well, it's an important thing to find out that, because a lot of our guys keep asking me about, what about flushing the lagoon? And I think that's something that we really need to study. And the third thing, so many people are fertilizing their yards and over irrigating the water. You see water coming down the street, and just recently some projects in my area, I see they're planting more grass that has to be watered. And I think that somehow we need to do some kind of a study to curtail the amount of irrigation water that's going down. It's not good. You could go to a different kind of grass, go to bahia that doesn't have to be watered so much or doesn't have to be fertilized so much. So I don't know whether you all have considered doing something about that. To me, that would be one way of improving the runoff water quality, is just don't irrigate so much. Finally, I just wanted to say thank you so much for what you all do here. It's great. I managed the Tampa Bay Water Quality Management Plan back in the 70s it was the EPA, and we came up with a plan back in the 70s. In the 2000, the grass improved to the level that it was in Tampa Bay. It improved to what it was the level in the 1950s. So we got a long way to go, and I really thank you all for what all you do here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. All right, last public comment is Craig Wallace.
Good morning, all. Craig Wallace, providing Leader of the Lagoon Coalition. Next Tuesday is our day. Hopefully, you will all be there. The commission will be considering our request, or the request, to have on the ballot this year, the renewal of the program for another 10 years. So this is huge. This is our opportunity to get this done now. A lot of people are asking, well, why do we need to do it now? It doesn't expire until 26. I think you all know the answer to that, but we've got to make it clear to the commissioners, we need this, and it's not up to them, it's up to the people to vote on this. It's their tax. So we really need to get this going so that we can get the planning going and make as much as we can out of the future here without the delays. We've already seen the impact of, something as simple as, well, we can't, we've got to, funding increases. We're going to see a lot more of that going forward. So, anything we can do to move this forward. So if you got blue shirts, wear them. If you don't have blue shirts, we'll have a few there. Have your friends come out. Let's pack the stadium and let them know that we've got the support there. This is our opportunity. Yeah, we'll still have another opportunity in 26, but I don't really want to wait there. And I'm sure all these folks on the staff here don't want to wait there either. So we appreciate you showing up. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Craig.
Is it an afternoon or morning?
It is a day meeting, so it starts at 9. We are going to be, it's the first item on the H agenda, so most of the agenda prior to that can go fairly quickly. Sometimes it doesn't, depending on what they want to do with the consent agenda. So we're estimating it'll probably be around 10 o'clock, roughly, that they'll be considering this. I know it's tough to get out there during the day, but anybody who can, appreciate it. This would be, assuming we get the okay on Tuesday, it will have to come up again for the public meeting on the hearing on the following meeting, which would be the 6th, I think, of August.
August 6th, 5 p.m.
So that would be an evening meeting. That will be equally as important. We got to make sure that, with all the public comment and things going on, that, that message still carries through, even though we have gotten through the first phase. So both of those will be important. We're working on it, doing the best we can to get the commissioners convinced, but we don't have 3 votes yet.
Yes, Commissioner Smith?
I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway because I think a lot of people don't. What is the reasoning for bringing it up now as opposed to 26?
Yeah, there's multiple reasons. Probably the most important one is that, if you look back at the beginning of this program, when we started up, even though there was a plan in place of what we wanted to do, we didn't have the actual sites, what we were going to do, the project started. So it took 2-3 years to get some of these big public works projects going. So if we wait until 2026, we're going to be starting that whole thing again. And in the meantime, we've got a lot of money in the bank. We still have things that we can do with the existing funds, but we need to get those longer term, those 3, 4, 5-year projects started. We need to get the conceptual of what do you want to do and get that in the process, in the middle of getting that going. So kind of that's probably the biggest thing. The other thing we got to consider is, what message are we sending to Tallahassee, to the federal government, in terms of all this additional supporting funding we're finally getting for this program is all kind of dependent upon this program. If we didn't have this program, we would not be getting those funds. Ask all the other counties that are wondering, what can they do to get the kind of funding that we're getting. So there's a lot of things that depend on doing this. Plus, once again, you got a lot of staff working on this. They're going to be wondering, well, what the heck, what's going to go on in 26? If we have to wait until November of 26, that's a long time, and we have a big risk there. So those are a couple of reasons. There's many more, but.
All right. Okay, thank you, Craig.
All right, thank you.
All righty. Any comments by committee members? Don, please.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Laura Lee because the article that I sent out on horseshoe crabs she coordinated a lot of the data collection. So very good work there. Hopefully you all read the article too.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? Todd, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to apologize for both my tardiness and having to take care of some offline things because of some of the issues that happened last night I don't know if anyone saw the global cyber issue, so my apologies.
Everyone stay safe out there with your computers. All right. Virginia, yes.
Well, I didn't want to go ahead, but Mr. Glass asked some questions. So on the irrigation use, just to remind everybody, we do now have irrigation outreach as one of the outreach programs, and we're working with the new contractor for outreach on how to roll that out. And in the meantime, the St. Johns River Water Management District has a great Water Less program, which we continue to repost and push their outreach on limiting irrigation to limit the runoff problems that he mentioned. And he also asked about utilities OSTDS mitigation plan. That is going to the board on Tuesday as well. And so each community is tasked with a number of things following on from the Clean Waterways Act of 2020, but one of them is to do an inventory of all of the septic in your community and whether or how, right, it's going to either be connected to sewer by 2030 or upgraded to advanced septic. So all septic in the Indian River Lagoon, and that wasn't part of the Clean Waterways Act, it was part of different ruling in the 2023 legislature, but all of those septic are supposed to be either connected or upgraded by 2030. And so we went through a process of identifying, updating our maps, working with the cities, working with the utilities, updating our inventory of what septic is out there, redoing the prioritization of hotspots for potential septic to sewer conversions, and then what else is there that would need to be upgraded to meet this rule requirement, and what would that cost? And so if we do the septic to sewer that's in the plan, and we do the septic upgrades that are funded in the plan, the unfunded need to just do septic upgrades is on the order of $335 million. If we were doing more septic to sewer and fewer septic upgrades, the price tag would go up from there. So just to follow up on that, we also had to project future growth over the next 10 to 20 years. Where will growth be on sewer? Where should sewer service areas expand to accommodate growth? And what sort of growth would we anticipate on septic? So based on those projections, we are anticipating the addition of over 60,000 more septic systems. They will have to be the nitrogen reducing systems, the advanced systems, but as you know, and you saw in Laura's presentation this morning, those still only address nitrogen, right? They cut the nitrogen in half, but they don't do anything to address the phosphorus, and the phosphorus is a particular problem in septic communities. And in Don's presentation, you saw the impact of phosphorus and changing nitrogen to phosphorus ratios in the whole lagoon. So we have, growth in our future that's going to add nutrients, and we have unfunded needs. So.
Great. Yeah, Todd.
I'd just like to add one more thing on the irrigation piece is, I know rate discussions are always hard, but a rate signal when you're overusing is significant. So I definitely encourage the utilities to really look at very appropriate rates. And there's ways to, break up your tiers in such a way that if you're using an appropriate amount of water, that your rate's very manageable, and that then there's significant increases when you get above the amount that you should be using. So, in fact, we use a tiered system that's even based upon your irrigable area and things of that nature. So that, I think that's one important piece.
And your rate, the efforts that y'all have done has reduced your irrigation by some
significantly.
overwhelming.
I don't have so the other one is looking far upstream in the development standards. We're actually seeing a lot of the new developments really embrace lower water use and sustainable living. Just even the support that we have here for this initiative, so people are willing to, but what does happen is that you've got to have consistency across the entire footprint, because if one builder can have these one style of landscape that people are still going to gravitate to, then it's that becomes more challenging. But where we're nice and consistent, and we see holding all the builders accountable to the same standard, so that's not part of how they're differentiating between each other, and they're just trying to sell their product. They're very supportive, and they recognize the needs of an environment, and we're seeing more and more of the public that is embracing environmental health. So, I think those are there, and what we have seen, Virginia, is on the development standards is a push. We actually limit new homes to a standard that is no more than 28 inches of supplemental irrigation per year. So that's their design basis. We're still trying to drive that even lower. And so there's ways to do it, and we're seeing more and more availability of not only Florida-friendly, but Florida-native plants, which is a significant difference. Florida-native and Florida-friendly are not the same thing. Florida-native are much more resilient to, intermittent drought conditions and things of that nature. And there's more and more landscape nurseries that have those available as well. So the market is growing to support that need, even in a high-growth area.
Great. Thank you, Todd. Yeah, I think the longer we do this, the more market forces can be applied, so that not only is this the right thing to do, but it makes it the efficient and cheap thing to do, especially if you're cutting off or if you're limiting water use. And that's a great way to get people's attention, too. If somebody gets a reclaimed water bill that's way higher than they're used to, that's definitely going to get them inquiring on why. And if they can be educated, that's awesome. All right. Anything else? With that, we will end it, and we'll see everybody in August. Thank you.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.